All right, we are live for another episode of the SCMP Live Chat. I am your host, JHK, and today I got a great guest, man. This guy, he is a phenomenon. Tyson Chartier, thank you so much, man, for coming on and joining me. I know it's hard to find time in this world, especially how busy you are with managing, coaching, and just life in general as a father, a dad, a caretaker, whatever. You know what I mean? There's so much going on. How are you doing right now, and where are you?
You caught me on a good day, man. I'm quarantined in Vegas. I'm cornering William Knight this weekend. He's fighting Alonzo Menifield. So I flew in this morning, so I have to quarantine by myself for a day, and then I get to join the team tomorrow. So yeah, not a ton going on. I got some calls to make, booking some local fights and stuff. So yeah, I mean, this is a welcome distraction. I'm just sitting in this room by myself. So.
Definitely. Well, William Knight, is he like top 10, one of the most bodied up fighters that you've ever seen in your life? That dude is just a monster.
Yeah, man, he's not the guy you want to look across the cage and be like, hey, I'm gonna fight that guy. Like if looks were one belt, he'd already have it, right? He
Yeah.
just looks like an action hero, but look who he's fighting, Alonzo Menifield. That guy's bodied
Yeah.
up too. So
Yeah.
it's an exciting fight. I think it's one the fans are gonna love. We're super excited about it. But yeah, man, Williams a freak, and he earned it. Like, he worked so freaking hard, and he was just doing strength and conditioning today at the PI because the kid just works out every day. So yeah, he's a fun one to see. Just a physical specimen.
Yeah, he's a perfect case of kind of, hitting some obstacles and then just rebuilding and then earning his spot on the roster. And he's done a phenomenal job. His debut was great.
Yeah, he fought a really tough kid, in Alexa Kamara, I think was his name, and you could see he just broke him. He just wore on him. He didn't. He just keeps coming. He carries a pace from minute 1 to minute 15 or longer, and these guys, they just can't keep up. So you can see it in their eyes. They're like, oh my God, this guy's so strong, and then they kind of deal with it. But then he comes back, he's still just as strong, and he's not getting tired. And then they start to get tired. And then they go into that mode of they're not even trying to win anymore. They're just trying not to get hurt. And I think you saw that in the Alexa Kamara fight. He just mentally broke him.
Yeah, it's gonna be fireworks this weekend with Willie Knight and Alonzo. For the people that are joining us right now, please leave your comments, questions for Tyson, for us, any topics that you want us to discuss. Just leave them in the comments and we'll get to them shortly. Make sure to hit that subscribe, the like, the share, all of that good stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, Tyson, the first thing I want to get into, of course, is Rob Font, man. Like, the guy comes back and just performs incredibly and establishes himself in that bantamweight division. And I think, to be honest with you, is it harder to establish yourself in the bantamweight division compared to, let's say, like the welterweight division or the middleweight division? Do you think that the competition is that steep? Because I believe it is, even worldwide.
Look who's around him. You got the champ is Petr Yan. You got Aljamain Sterling fighting for the belt and number one contender. Then you have like the hottest prospect in maybe even all divisions, Corey Sandhagen. And then you look at now Rob's 3. Look at who's number 4, Cody Garbrandt, former champ. Number 5, Aljamain Sterling, Jose Aldo, former champ. Number 6, I think, is Edgar, former champ. Maurice, number 7, former title challenger. And then sitting out here on the wings, coming back from a 2-year suspension, is the former champ who never lost his belt, TJ Dillashaw. I mean, it's a murderer's row. You got 7 guys that legitimately had title aspirations, or were former champs or at least number 1 contenders, all sitting there. And then Rob's right sitting there at number 3. Like, yeah, it's amazing. I don't know of a division that's deeper with like bigger names and guys that had titles before and that are legitimately, like, any one of those guys could have a belt if they got the title shot. So yeah, I mean, it's a freaking deep division. It's exciting, and there's a lot of legends in there too.
Yeah,
Dominic Cruz isn't even top 10.
Exactly. And he's coming back in a couple of weeks.
So,
Yes,
yeah,
it's
I
an
mean,
interesting.
you're in a division.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, go
No,
ahead.
you go ahead. You broke up a little bit.
Oh, did I? All right. Well, it's an
I was just saying, like,
interesting
you have Dominic
combination.
Cruz.
Is there a delay
Let's
a
go.
little bit?
There was. Yeah, now I can hear you. I think it was just delayed. But
Okay, go ahead.
can you hear me good now? All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying if Dominic Cruz isn't even in the top 10, then you have a deep division. And
Mm.
I know 55 and 45, 55, and 70 are also like exciting divisions too, and there's a lot of big names. But man, it's hard to argue over 35. Just the number of guys that are still arguably in their prime, could still win a title or already had a title or fought for a title. And yeah, man, Rob's right there in that mix.
Yeah, it's an interesting combination of these former champs, veterans, legends of the sport, and these killers in their prime. And it's almost like Rob does want to climb up the ranks and face the guy for the title, right? But then at the same time, you have these other guys that you would like to fight before they retire, like Aldo and Edgar and Cruz and even Dillashaw. I mean, I don't. Do you consider Dillashaw a contender if he hops back in this year when he hops back in?
Yeah, I think we've got to assume TJ Dillashaw is going to be just as good as when he left, if not better. It's not like he's still on the right side of 40. He's still in good shape. He's always been a hard worker. Who knows how many fights he did EPO or didn't. So you just got to assume it was that one fight and assume that you're still going to get the best TJ Dillashaw that's, kind of healed his body. He's not, he's all fixed up. And that was a guy that he was the champ. He never lost the belt. So you got to assume that he's still right up there.
When you have Rob looking to come back and you're looking at the list of fighters, right? And then TJ comes out and says, I want a top 5 guy or I want a title shot. Rob, they don't talk about him. Why doesn't Rob fight
No,
TJ? Like that would be a good.
none of
Do you like that matchup?
dude, we'll fight anybody in the top 5 too. We just, Rob came. He's had some bad luck. He had a healthy scratch in 2019 where he fought Pettis, and then we just had a fight. Lineker pulled out, or Stamen pulled out. Then Lineker pulled out the night before with an injury during the weight cut, and then we were supposed to get a quick turnaround, just didn't materialize. So then we didn't fight from December, and then again in December of December 18, December 19, and then we tore our ACL, sat out another year, and then we just come back and beat Moraes. He's got 3 wins in a row. He's the only guy in the top 5 that's got 3 wins in a row. And he just knocked out Marlon Moraes in the first round. He will fight any of those guys. He's earned the right to fight like a TJ, a Sandhagen, Aldo, Cody Garbrandt, any of those guys. But if you notice, none of those guys are saying his name.
Yeah.
Garbrandt was just on the Joe Rogan podcast. He mentioned, Aldo, Sterling, the champ, Sandhagen, TJ. Doesn't mention Rob, and then he mentions 120, Figueiredo and Moreno too. So he's not mentioning any of those guys, and and it makes sense. He's like a very silent 3-fight win streak, but he's also a stud. So the name value, maybe they don't feel is there on their end. It's like they're going to fight this guy who's still kind of just bursting onto the national scene where, the diehards know that he's been good. It's just, he just had a little derailment and with the injuries and stuff. Yeah, it's a tough out. You're in for a great fight. You're in for the freaking most annoying jab in the UFC and then knockout power. And now his ground game keeps getting better. And a guy that can go hard for 15 minutes. You look at what Ricky Simone's done in his career, and we were able to take him down a few times and get up every single time he took us down, and we did it with one leg. So it's all right, you're gonna out wrestle us, maybe. So it's just a lot of you're gonna outstrike us. Look what we just did to Moraes. We basically knocked him out with a jab, and yeah, Rob's right up there, and it makes sense why no one's saying his name, because if you're gonna say, oh, I'm going to fight Rob Font, he's a dark horse, right? Or fight Jose Aldo. Probably Jose Aldo is a bigger fight on paper. People are going to be excited for that. It's going to get more eyes, but and it's probably an easier fight than fighting against Rob. So I get it. I respect why they're doing it. They have to do whatever they think is best for their career, their coaches, their management. They're all smart for not mentioning Rob. So that's why I thought the TJ fight made sense. TJ, he's coming off of a 2-year layoff. He admitted the cheating. He did his punishment like a man, and now he's coming back. He followed, he did everything he was supposed to do after getting caught. He admitted to it. Now he served his time, and now he's going to come back. I don't think he should get to call any shots. Like respect to him for just admitting it and not like trying to act like it was a tainted supplement or something. But you admitted you cheated. Along with that comes the consequences of like, all right, yeah, I understand that you were the former champ. Respect that. I respect your hard worker, all that stuff. But like, you don't get to call your shots now. Like you should have to fight who the UFC wants you to fight or whatever makes sense for the division. And with no one calling out Rob because he is that dark horse and he's sitting at number 3, Sandhagen should probably get the next title shot. You should fight us. But we'll see how it all pans out.
Yeah, it's a good time, in the bantamweight division. I'm excited to see what's next for Rob. When is he ready to come back? Does he have a timeline?
Yeah, we're eyeing May. We're just loosely saying, hey, be ready for May, and they're just trying to sort it out. Because if you look at it, it's a mess up at the top right now. You got the title fight that's next week, and then you have Sandhagen sitting there. He's probably earned the shot to fight the winner of that fight, and then depending on how that fight goes, you're gonna have the loser of that fight back in the mix, depending on how quickly they want to turn around. And then you have TJ just sitting there ready to get back in, and then you have Aldo and Garbrandt and us just sitting there waiting. A lot of fun matchups to make. What direction do you go? I don't know. It's like I don't know. Any of those fights are good. You got I'm assuming that some of it will play into injuries with Sterling and Jan. But other than that, man, there's a lot of good fights to make.
Yeah, no doubt. Any fight. Now we got a bunch of questions for you. Let's start with this one from Cole Shelton of BJPen.com. He is saying, if Dominic Cruz beats Kenny, do you think that is a fight that makes sense for Font?
I mean, it depends where he gets ranked. Us sitting at number 3, we want to fight that if we win, we get a title shot. I think that's the goal of Rob's. If Rob's goal was to knock off Legends, then yeah, that would probably make sense. But let's say he beats Casey Kenny. I don't really know what that does for his ranking. If it makes sense financially, then me and Rob talk about it. But at this point, we're looking forward. Or we're looking for like legends like that are highly ranked. And I think the Cruz fight's a fun fight. If he was like, let's say Aldo was number 11 or 10 or whatever he is, and Cruz was number 5 or number 4. Yeah, I think he's 5. Then yeah, that'd be a really fun fight, and I think it would do a lot for us. But we want to fight one of these guys right around us. It's we just beat the number 3 guy. We want to beat the number 1, 2, 4, 5.
Yeah, you want to, like you said, you want to move forward. You don't want to move backwards.
Or TJ, yeah.
If you move a couple steps back, financially, you have to be compensated, right? Like there's got to be something extra in there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like if the UFC dangled a carrot and said, "Hey, we really want this Cruz fight," and ranked number 10, and they made it sense. It made sense financially, and you got to always say that is the risk worth the reward. Just like when Calvin fought Ige, it was like, all right, number 6 fighting number 11. Okay, and if it makes sense, we'll do it. So, yeah, I mean, there's always a lot of like thought and speculation. There's always a lot of effort put into those decisions, and we make that as a team. I generally follow my gut on those decisions and sit down and advise the guys and tell them what I think. We make a decision together, and but yeah, I mean, just my gut reaction to that one, Cole. It'd be a fun fight. I know Rob would love to fight Cruz, and but at this point, I think right now our goal is to chase the title, and we're just gonna take whatever fight we think gets us closest to that.
Yeah, there's another interesting question here about coaching and managing. So in this one from James Kendrick, he says, how hard is it to book fights and manage fighters when both fighters are in the same management? And I think like this is happening right now with Zhang Wei Li, Rose Namajunas, and Carla Esparza. They're all 3 are at the top of the division, but they're all managed by the same company. And it's like, how do you handle that, Tyson? It must be crazy, insane right there.
It's obviously a good problem for those managers to have. It means you're obviously doing you're successful. but like I'm not trying to be as big as those management companies, you know. Like I'm more of, I always say, like, if they're Walmart, I'm the corner store. You know, I'm gonna know your name, I'm gonna know your order. I'm more of a boutique, and it's more hands on with me, and and there's pros and cons to both ends. You know, maybe they have more reach, but I'm gonna probably be, at some of your training sessions and have a closer relationship with you and your family, and it's not a numbers game to me. Like I put a lot of like effort and consideration and time into the decisions we make based on your career, and I'm gonna do everything that every decision we make is going to be whatever's best for your career, not what's best for Top Game Management or me or my wallet. It's literally whatever's best for you is what we're going to do. It's not about the whole company. And I think, I mean, it's definitely like like I said, a good problem for them to have. I can't see how it's not like there's got to be some sort of friction there, you know, and that's not anybody's fault, right? It's just kind of a necessary evil of being in that situation. But whoever doesn't get the title shot, like, are they feeling like they didn't push hard enough for it, or, are they feeling like, are you favoring one over the other? And I'm not accusing anybody of doing this. I'm just saying, like, that's what you're going to end up hearing, and it's tough because you gotta, if you have three people fighting, two people vying for one title shot. My job, if I have a manager, their job is to push harder for me over everyone else. But if you're also managing my potential rival over there, it's like, which one are you pushing for? Now are you letting the UFC decide, and you're not going to push for either one? And then it becomes like, all right, well, what do why don't I just push for myself? And I'm not saying that's what they're doing. Like, I have no idea. I don't know. It's a good position for them to be in, but also, there are some drawbacks. I'm sure that those people are handling it, probably the most professional way you can. And I think that's, you just got to be transparent with everything that's going on. But yeah, it's got to be tough.
Yeah, it is tough, and a situation I would never want to be in myself in anything, right? It's just you're like in between everybody, and like you said, you bring up a good point about how not everybody's gonna be satisfied with the outcome. Someone's gonna be hurt. Someone's gonna get the short end of the stick, and I feel like this is just speculation. I feel like that's the holdup to this whole title fight situation. That's why they haven't announced anything. Nothing's official because there's this storm going on right now between these three, and it's just my speculation. I don't know if it's real or not. Let's go to another question. Let's see what we got here. Oh no, this is how does Tyson manage fighters in the stable who have to fight? Oh, we already did that one. Someone asked the same question. Let's go to another one right here from from Cole. Another question for Cole is, here we go. Is it easier or harder to coach fighters by also being their managers? I think this is a situation that happens a lot, and you're in that situation too. So could you shine some light on that?
I think it's a lot easier to manage them if you are their coach. I know matchups way better than any other manager could. I know timelines. I know health. I know what's good and bad matchups. I know, like, guys that they're excited about, guys that they're not. Like, I'm on the mats with them every day, So there's no way, bring the so-called best managers in the world in, and I don't think they're going to treat my guys as good as I can, or even with the TLC and the level of care that I put into my guys. So I think it makes it, a lot easier. The guys I coach, it is easier to manage them just because I have so much more, like, touch with them. I'm around them a lot more, so a lot of times I can do things without even having to ask them questions because I already know the answers, and stuff like that. And then the guys that I don't coach and I just manage, it's a lot about, like, communication, just staying in touch and making sure that you're reaching out and just kind of give them that touch. And but it definitely, like, way easier. I don't know how I would do it if I was coaching a fighter and then someone else was managing them. And then you hear these horror stories about managers, like, kind of dicking around, you never know if you're getting the truth. You think you're kind of being a pawn in their bigger game. And I don't play that, it's like, I'll show any fighter my text messages and my emails. They can see the whole thing. If they want to tweak it how we say it, I'll tell them why I don't think we should. But if that's ultimately what they want to do, I'll let them do it. I just think, you got to be fully transparent with your communication. But I hear you always hear this stuff like, oh, the UFC said this. It's like, oh, cool. Can you show me? And they're like, oh, I deleted it. It's like, well, now you're building distrust. Now there's kind of like there's a pebble in the shoe there, and that's gonna fester. And then the fighter's gonna be like, damn, it's like, was he lying? Was he telling the truth? I don't know, man. It's like, you have that type of stuff going on. But I don't think I would do too well if I had another manager managing the guys that I coach.
Yeah, there's three different personalities right there. You got the fighter, you got the coach, and you got the manager. They all need to be on the same page. Very difficult to do. The next thing, Ghost Phantom 98, he's saying, how do you protect sparring partners when working on your striking setups as a coach?
You just drill. We drill a lot. Like obviously, for Rob and Calvin, we have our Muay Thai coach Jake Manini and our boxing coach Sean Farley, and we do a lot of drilling. Like obviously, we're hitting mitts, but then we're doing drilling, and then even in sparring, you do like half speed sparring, where it's just like flow sparring, stuff like that, and just a lot of like drills, like like certain combos to takedowns and vice versa, like a lot of footwork drills, stuff like that. Like you don't have to go ham on your partners, and even when you're sparring, I'm like a very, I guess you laugh, I'm very like conservative and cautious coach, and I try to pull back the reels. We don't spar super, super hard. And if we start going a little hard, I'm like the same guy. It's going to be, hey, no knees up the middle. Let's be careful here. We're not getting paid to spar. So, I think it's just, you build a different culture in the gym, and then you build it of like, listen, these guys aren't punching bags. They're teammates. I think Joe Lozon had a good line one time where he's like, don't break your toys. Those are people you have to play with every day. That's going to make you better. And if you break them, you're not going to be able to play with them anymore. And that's kind of how you got to treat your sparring partners. Is you can't get to the fight without them, so you need them to get to the fight with you.
For you, when you were training and you were coming up as a fighter, did you spar hard? Were you in the war? Were you in wars in the
Yeah,
gym?
man, we freaking got our ass kicked. We did it stupid. Like we were sparring 3 days a week, 2 days with little gloves, and we were getting knocked out. And like, man, I won't call him out, but I remember the coach of the old gym I was at, and at the time I was young and naive, and I didn't really understand how much of a dickhead move it was. But he was telling me to shoot, but then and I was freaking sparring against one of the Muay Thai coaches, and I was sparring against him, and the guy had no wrestling or whatever, so he keeps yelling at me to shoot, but then he says in Thai, hey, when he shoots, throw over your knee. So I get knocked out cold in the gym, and they're like laughing about it. I'm like, what the frig, man? That's not just stupid stuff like that. Like it was a different culture back then, and but it kind of gave me, my view on how sparring should be now, and how we handle it. And ideally, nobody's getting knocked out. We're not going that hard. Nobody's getting hurt. If we start to see that guys are getting a little worn down and around, we try to pull back, pull down, work on some things, and take them down, stuff like that. But yeah, man, and it was the Wild West back when we did it. We learned how not to do everything, and then now I'm trying to instill all those lessons that I learned the hard way, and be safer now.
Yeah, definitely. That's what we need. We need guys like you to come to the newer generation guys and show them the right way, instead of just doing that bite down on your mouthpiece and let's just swing hammers at each other during practice. It's not going to be helpful. And if anybody wants to see how Tyson performs, man, go back on YouTube and watch his fights in CES, man. There's some great fights on YouTube of him performing phenomenally. Tyson, do you ever get the itch?
No, I just turned 40. I have a thumb that doesn't bend. I broke in my last fight. I have 6 screws and a metal plate in my neck. I have two of the discs removed back in 2012 after my last fight. And yeah, I mean, there was a little bit after the last fight where I got my neck surgery and then I was healing up. I'd love to just do one more because I went out on a loss. But I'm proving myself through these guys and their success. I feel like I'm a small part of it. And when they win, that's part of my journey, and I get my competitive juices up that way. So I don't have any delusions of competing again, but I get more nervous when these guys compete though, so that's just as stressful.
And you would never come back for, like, let's say a boxing match or something like that, like a Ben Askren, Jake Paul type deal.
I mean, if they want to pay me 6 figures to come out and fight a YouTube guy, I'd lace him up for it, but I don't think I'd win. I'd probably just cover up the whole time, try not to get hurt. But I don't know. Yeah, man, I just feel like what I'm passionate about is these guys' success. I don't have that ego part of me that I don't think of myself as an athlete anymore. I'm not, I had some success. I did decent in wrestling, and then I had some success in MMA, but I never had any delusions of going to UFC. I didn't start training until I was like 27 years old or something. And I never had any delusions of like going to the UFC. It was just bucket list things. I would take one fight, train, and then it was like, let me help my friends. I'm getting myself all these fights. Let me get them a fight. Oh, there's no one to corner him. I'll corner you. And then, you built trust over that. I feel like I had a knack for it. Obviously, we've had some success. And, I benchmarked quite a bit. I saw some coaches that taught me a lot of good things. And I had probably even more coaches that taught me a lot of bad things about how not to work with fighters and how not to handle them and how not to care for them. And, my whole style in coaching now is a blend of all that, all the things I learned to do and then learn not to do, the things I didn't get that I wish I did, and things I got that I liked. And now it's just about like every decision I make is like, all right, what's best for this fighter? And then you just try to go the extra mile and give them that plus one.
All right, now we got Sean Madden in the chat. He's asking you how you enjoying the quarantine.
I gotta meet. And come right back because the UFC's calling me.
Oh, are they?
I'll log right back in.
Yeah. Go ahead.
1 second.
All right, everybody that's watching, Tyson will have to log out and take a call. And let's remove him for a second, and then we'll have him return after the call. But yes, Sean, we'll get into that in a second. For the people in the comments, thank you for sending your questions and your comments. Keep them coming. Ask whatever you want to ask. I'll try to get to all of it. Tyson, he is a guy putting in work in the Northwest. He is the leader of the New England Cartel. It's not a drug syndicate. It's the name of his team. And he does run Top Game Management, a guy that I've known for a couple of years now, a guy that, very honest in everything he does. So it's always good to bring him in and chat. Now with some of the topics, here's some here. Let me see. I got a question here from somebody. Let me see what he says. All right, here we go. Dakota Hancock. Are you actually talking to anyone listed in the title or just about them? Let me know. Oh, we're just talking about them. We're talking this show. If you've never watched it before, is a show that, like I said, we have a live Q&A, and we have guests, usually a journalist or a coach in the sport in MMA, and we just shoot the shit, like we're just talking, you know what I mean? And it gives a chance for people watching to ask questions directly to whoever's the guest, to us. It doesn't matter. Just bring it up, and then we'll try to get to it as soon as possible. All right. Let me see. Let me get to something else. If you guys are fighting in the chat, keep fighting. It doesn't really do much for us. It's funny. I like you guys going back and forth. It shows passion. And yeah, it shows passion. I like it. What is it? All right, so Youssef, I'll get to your question when Tyson comes back. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, here we go. We got a question. Corvina Stalker, are you watching Victoria Lee's debut Friday? Most likely I'll try to watch it. I think they're gonna do a fight watch along thing. All right, Tyson's back. Let's get him back on. All right. Some important calls happening. So now you're back. So back to the quarantine life. Like, how many times have you been in that hotel?
This one, probably like maybe 8 or 9.
Wow.
Not as much Sean. Sean was just here 2 weeks in a row. Sean knows the drill. It's freaking windy, but at least I got a single, so I'm by myself. I'm just chilling over here. But I got to meet Sean someday. He's freaking. I always talk on Instagram. I respect his hustle. I feel like he's one of the good guys. There's there's certain coaches that you can tell from afar. You can tell how much they care. And then there's other coaches that you kind of see like almost trying to be famous. And he seems like one of the real guys, and like, I don't know. For some reason, you just tell like a person's presence, and he seems like one of those good guys. And I'm excited to meet him in person eventually.
All right,
Hopefully,
we
it's
got
not
another
one
question.
where we're fighting Corey Sandhagen. He's cornered against me, but.
All right, now we got a question from Youssef. What is the best advice you would give someone who's looking to learn MMA disciplines at a later age or latter age?
Yeah, man, it's tough. You got to find a reputable gym. If you're just looking to jump into MMA with no experience, like I get this question a lot on Instagram, like people like either parents or whatever, they'll message me, and it's the same thing every time. It's like I say, listen, you gotta find a gym that's reputable. Like a good coach, like safe training partners, and then just start in the beginner classes. Like take white belt jiu-jitsu, take beginner MMA, beginner Muay Thai, take beginner boxing, all that stuff, and then just keep learning and don't be so quick to take your first fight. I always have this theory that you should not be fighting MMA until you're at least a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, because that means like if you start training, and jiu-jitsu is one of the disciplines, it's probably gonna take you about a year to get your blue belt. At least then you have a year of solid MMA training under your belt, and at least a foundation of a blue belt level to go take an amateur fight and probably be somewhat competent to not get hurt. Because I think too many people burn out. They come in and I'm going to fight. I'm sure Sean will agree with this if he's listening. They come in and they're like, I'm going to fight. And then they get their asses handed to them that day. And they either never come back, or like they come back and then they train so hard. Like, I want to fight. And then they go and get that first fight. They get to put the picture up on Facebook, and then they're done training. It's like you wasted your time, you wasted our time. Like, so I think from a quality, from a not getting hurt standpoint, at least get your blue belt, because then at least you're dedicated, and then go further than that and at least have a solid year under your belt, so you're not wasting the coach's time of investing all the time and energy into you, and then you just turn around, fight, and then leave. So.
All right. Well, Sean said, much appreciated, coach. The feeling is mutual. It's always good to see, a good, I guess, good relationships between coaches. And that kind of leads into the next question from Cole Shelton is it hard to coach against other coaches who you work with and like Eric Dixik when Kattar fought Ige?
No, it wasn't hard. So Eric would handle it a much different way than I do. I let the fighter dictate how it's going to be handled. But we got that fight. We love Eric. We got the fight, and Calvin's like, "Nah, man." He's like, "These enemies." So I'm like, "Okay." So I didn't reply to Eric. Sent me a couple messages on Instagram, and I'm like, "We're foes now. I'll get you a beer after the fight," And then I didn't look at his stories. I didn't DM him, like nothing. And then we saw each other in the airport when we were about to fly out to Abu Dhabi. And he walks up. He's like, "What's up, boys?" And I was like, "Hey," and I walked away. And he's like, "Oh, okay. I see how it's gonna be." And then the whole week we walked by each other like 3 or 4 times, and it was just like, I think Ige did the Schmo podcast, and he's like, "Oh, I think it was their egos." It wasn't that. It was I was carrying myself in a way that I knew wouldn't distract Calvin. Calvin was like, "Nope, this is game time. They're not our friends right now. We're gonna go do business. We'll be friends after." And so that's how I handled myself the whole week, because I knew that would keep Calvin in a better headspace. And then right after the fight ended, Calvin ran over, like literally the 5th round bell ended. He hugged Ige, ran over the other side. He goes, "Eric, I can give you a big hug now." So it was like, you got to play it how the fighter wants to play it, and that's how Calvin wanted to play it, and that's what we did. But it's almost kind of more fun, you're like, "I'm gonna beat this." Like me and Eric were co-coaches of the year, which is great. I'd rather have someone win it with me, but it's like, all right, we're co-coaches, but like my arm was a little in front of you in the picture, and we beat Ige, so I was like, it's just a bunch of ball busting.
Yeah, man. That's what makes it fun, right? Being able to bust each other's balls and not take it as seriously.
Yeah.
Because it's already serious. You're in there, you're fist fighting, you're going to war. So any chance to get, some jokes in is always good.
Yeah.
We got another question from Youssef. He says, favorite fighter to watch, which is not your clients, one of your clients.
I'm trying to think. Who do I get excited for? Like legitimately get excited for when they fight? I mean, obviously, like the big names, you know, the Connors. Like I'm a fan too, you know, the Connors and the Adesanya's and those guys. But man, it's caught me off guard there. I don't know. I watch every single fight. You know, like every time UFC's on, I watch the prelims all the way to the main card. But there's definitely certain fighters that I get like, oh, this person's fighting. I don't know why they like them, but I can't remember the names off the top of my head. I got CT, I think, or something. But I'm gonna come back to that. I'm gonna think about it.
All right. Well, you know, talking about watching fighters, watching cards this weekend, we got the main event. We got a guy asking Tristan. He's asking us, do you have a prediction for this weekend's main event? Jairzinho, Rosenstrike, Cyril Gane.
I think I'm gonna go with Cyril Gane. I think it's kind of like the toss up, right? Anytime there's two heavyweights that hit hard, it's always like, oh. I think Gane probably has more passive victory. I think maybe you could say he's a little bit more athletic, but I think maybe the one punch power probably goes to Rosenstruck. So I just think like if Cyril gets him down, it would probably be bad for him. And I think he can also catch him on the feet, and he probably can push a better pace than Rosenstruck. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Rosenstruck just knocks him out. So I'm going to go with Gane, and I think he can probably get a finish. I think if Rosenstruck wins, it's probably just a one punch type thing.
Mm-hmm. Like all those other fights, basically.
Yeah. So I think Cyril's just a really athletic heavyweight. He's a bit of a problem heavyweight because his athleticism and stuff.
You know, before we get into talking about Calvin, I wanted to talk about the title fight coming up. Volkanovski versus Ortega. You know, you're probably going to keep a big eye on that, right? And I wanted to break it down. You know, I don't want to get too deep into it, but just break it down a little bit. Is what you see from a coach's standpoint in this matchup.
Well, I see Volkanovski's showing that he can be a grinder, but he can also pick you apart, you know? So I think and then after seeing how Max and Calvin went, like I have a whole new level of respect for Alex. You know, you realize that he's really good. So he's not one dimensional. He's making adjustments. He's he's dynamic and he's versatile, you know, and he's got good cardio. And then you got Ortega coming off the layoff, looked really good, you know, and showed different, you know, I can say he showed some different tricks and showed like almost like a different IQ. And he's got a different team around him, and I was really excited about like his performance. He looked really good against Zombie, and yeah, it's a tough one. It's like I have to go with Alex just because like he's been more active, but like I wouldn't be surprised if Ortega wins. You know, he looked so good in that last fight, but I just don't think that. I think if Alex wanted to, I think he could just kind of push around and wrestle. And I don't think he's really going to get submitted. I think he's got really good submission defense. And yeah, man, it's tough because there's not a lot of like, you know, you have those 5 rounds to look at Ortega, but other than that, you know, he's kind of a different fighter now. So you're not sure what to expect, what he's going to come out and do. But then also Alex on the same token, he's shown that he's willing to, you know, be boring and get on the top and just grind it out. But he's also willing to strike and pick you apart. And he's also got power. You know, you see what he did to Mendez. So it's tough, man. It's like I have to go with Alex, unless it was Max Holloway. Then I would always pick Alex right now.
All right. Now, you know, I was watching a recent interview with Henry Cejudo, and he brought up a point about fighting smaller, stockier guys. It's harder than people realize because we always think about the size advantage, like how tall someone is, how long their reach is, and we are fixated on that. But he brought up a good point. Do you think it is as difficult to fight a shorter, stockier fighter compared to a taller, longer one?
I can relate to that. I hated wrestling short, stocky guys. I felt like it was always hard to get a hold of anything. They had good hips. They were just the low center of gravity. They had good bases. And even in fighting, I loved fighting taller guys. You know, a lot of my losses came to short, stocky guys. So it was, yeah, I can relate to that. It's totally different leverage points, different, you know, your wrestling's different, you know, the range is different. You can kind of let bombs rip when you're fighting taller guys. So you got to kind of come over the top and around the guards and all that stuff. So I always enjoyed the same thing. I liked fighting taller guys.
Fighting on Fight Island and then fighting in Vegas, you've experienced both as a coach, and then your guys have fought in both places. What is the differences? Is there any differences? A cage is a cage, or is there,
No, this cage is
blame?
5 feet smaller in Vegas,
Oh
and
yeah,
then
that's also true.
yeah, this cage is smaller, but it's way easier to get here because it's basically we come here, stay here for 2 days, and then we go over to Fight Island for like 10 days. It's a 14-hour flight, 15-hour flight. It's more quarantining. It's a lot more taxing going to Abu Dhabi than it's going here. I'll take Vegas anytime. There's nothing wrong with Abu Dhabi. It's just way more of a challenge for everybody.
Yeah, so that pretty much that's the only difference then. So I feel like once people experience the Abu Dhabi, the Fight Island, protocol or whatever, they want to go back to Vegas. They don't want to
Yeah,
fight. It seems like over there in Abu Dhabi,
yeah. It's
not so
yeah.
much.
It's Vegas way. That's all. Calvin just wants to fight in Vegas once. Rob always gets to fight in Vegas. Calvin's gone to Abu Dhabi twice now.
um, you know, speaking
Just
of
so you know,
Calvin,
I
yeah.
I I have to call them back at right at 7. So
All
I'll
right,
have a hard stop. So I can't go the full hour and a half, but so I can go 20
all
more
right.
minutes.
We'll go
Sorry.
until
Yeah.
you have to leave. We'll get
All
to
right.
some of these questions before we go. So, Calvin, you know what I mean? Like, what's the next step for him? Because I think like he has so many options, even
Yeah.
coming off a loss.
Yeah. Right now we're in just like we're gonna rest. He's doing fine, but we just decided, hey, we're gonna take 30 days, nothing, just chill out, and then after that we'll go to like non-contact movement, like strength and conditioning, jogging, hitting noodles, stuff like that, and then we're just gonna do no contact till July. Calvin was in fight camp for basically 18 months.
Mhm.
Playing some of the baddest guys in the world and coming out with broken hands, broken noses. He got beat up in the last fight. He hadn't had a chance to just rest and decompress and kind of just focus on other things in his life. And he's dying to get back in there and start training, but I'm holding him back right now. I'm on. Let's just chill. Let's wait, and then ideally we get back in the gym in July.
Mhm.
He'll be in the gym, but no contact. Just like shadow boxing, noodles and stuff like that. But we'll start back to like hard rolling and drilling and stuff like that back in July, and then be ready to jump into a camp. So I can see him, September timeframe, get another fight, and you'll see who's around there. Like Zombies probably going to get booked soon. Emmett will be back. Who knows what's going to happen with the loser of Ortega and those guys, and so there's a lot of fun fights still ahead of us. Yair is a beat. There's a lot of fun fights, and I think Calvin showed the rest of the division that even if we don't win, you're in for a tough 15 or 25 minutes. Like, you're not going to put us away. So yeah, and obviously he'll come back better. You always learn from a fight like that. It's unfortunate how it went down, but that was the best Max Holloway's probably ever looked, and he's probably the best 45er to ever walk the face of the earth. And Calvin didn't feel like he performed very well. So from Calvin's point of view, it's like, I didn't perform very well. He performed the best he's ever looked, and I still survived. And that's nothing to like brag about, but it's like, all right, I know on my worst day and on the best fighter's best day, I'm still there. And now we got to figure out how to make it so the next time on their best day we can win.
Overcoming a loss from your position as a coach, as a manager, how do you guide them? How do you, position them and so they could go to the next challenge with a fresh mind, with a fresh start?
You come back with a plan, like there was no, there's definitely things that Max exposed in that fight that we kind of already knew about, but it's like, if it's not broken, don't fix it. This is what's working. And, you got to kind of choose your battles because there's no fighter that's perfect, even Max, that fight, we landed more punches in that fight than we've ever landed. And Max is just so tough, like it's, Max is probably the best featherweight that's ever walked the face of the earth, but he could, he still did a lot, and that's something he could work on. Like, that's not me throwing shade at him. It's just an example that even the best fighters aren't perfect, and so that's where, like, me as a coach, I have to take a step back and think, okay, how can we make some changes in camp, do some different things, change some things around, so that way we can fill in some of these holes, and then also from like a mental standpoint, how can I deliver things or repackage them in a different way so that way they come out on fight night, because Calvin was way better than he looked in that fight. We know that. So I think a good coach is going to take ownership and take responsibility when things don't go their way. You can't just point fingers and be like, well, it's not my fault. When a fighter wins, you got to point to him and say congratulations and push credit his way. When a fighter loses, you got to figure out a way to like absorb some of that credit for the loss or a lot of it, take the blame and say, hey, listen, this is what we did wrong. I'm going to change this up so that way it doesn't happen again. My bad, And I think that's a very simplistic way of putting it, but I think a lot of times you see the opposite where fighters win and the coaches are raising their hand and be like, look what I did, and then when the fighters lose, like, it's not my fault, you didn't listen, and the reality is if they don't listen, it is your fault because you didn't deliver it in a proper way to make them understand the importance of listening during those 15 or 25 minutes.
When you look at the situation between what's his name, the heavyweight boxer, the knockout guy that just lost to Tyson Fury,
Joshua?
No, not Joshua, the other guy, Wilder, right? And his whole situation between him and his longtime coach, right? How he's basically bashing him because that's the first loss he's taken, right? I think if I remember right,
I'm not huge in the boxing, but I know that he lost and then kind of like blamed his
just dumped everybody.
And then he blamed his walkout suit or something like that.
Yeah. And then like he's saying that he was like something was in the water that he was drinking, and like
it's tough. I think you see a guy going through a tough time. I think all the people that got him to where he was, he just dumped them and moved to some new people. So now it's like, who do you have around you that you really trust or that really understands you and can kind of keep you reeled in? For all we know, he could have been kind of like that the whole time, but he's being protected by the people around him. I think you have the right people around you, it's going to make you look the right way, and if you have the wrong people around you, it's going to make you look the wrong way. And maybe, and I'm speculating, maybe he had the right people around him his whole career that kind of shielded us from some of that. And when things are going good, it was easier to do, and then things go bad. Now he doesn't have anybody kind of running his PR program or something, and he's saying these things that maybe don't make sense to some people, and it's unfortunate because you can tell it's someone looking for confidence again.
Oh, definitely. We got a coach, and you're probably watching this fight too, which is the Aljo Jan fight coming up in 2 weeks. Rob is probably gonna be watching that really carefully, and what is your pick on that?
I'm going Aljo. I think I think his wrestling is underrated. I think he's in a good spot mentally. Probably coming into this fight with maybe some more tricks. I know he's been training out in Vegas and, cross training with a bunch of different people, probably out of his comfort zone, which is always good going into a fight where you have some of your comforts from home with some of your, your coaches and training partners, but then you got all this different mix. And I think he's just looked really good since I think it's the Moraes fight. And since then, he's been on a tear. You look what he did to, Sandhagen. I think that was a fight that if they fought 10 times, I don't think that happens every time. But I think he's just got good length in that funky style wrestling where he just, he comes in, he commits to it. And Jan's going to be worried about his wrestling. So that might open up some of the striking. And I just think, I got to go with Aljo on it. I just think he's in a really good spot right now. I think he's had a really, he's kind of fought the who's who of the division. And I think he's, not to say that Jan hasn't fought, but I think Jan hasn't had I think Jan had an easier path to the title than Aljo did.
All right. Yeah, I kind of, can agree with you on that a little bit. Like you said about the path to the title, it was different, for Aljo compared to Jan. And then it is odd to me, even though Petr Yan is a killer, both of them are killers. It's odd to me that Jan is not really odd, but I don't know how to express it right now, but it's just Sterling seems like he had like a better resume if you stack resume to resume, in the UFC compared to Jan. And I see this fight, it seems like it's a toss up for a lot of people. A lot of people are not just like choosing one side. It's just like some are Aljo, some are Jan, and that's what makes this fight so great. Speaking of this division, someone is asking about has Rob Font been approached with another fight yet? I didn't even ask you earlier about this.
No, we've just been told May, so we're just waiting. We're just staying in the gym. For the last month, we've been wrestling at 7 a.m. 3 days a week and doing strength and conditioning and hit mitts a few times a week. So we've got like our out of camp schedule is already in full effect. He's already dieting. We're planning on fighting in May. It's just we got to figure out which legend we're fighting, you know?
All right, sounds good. Now another thing is what is it? Cub Swanson, he puts out this tweet, right, saying that he thinks like the MMA media, or he was asking the question about MMA media, they should have 3 amateur fights. You know, he thought he was putting that out there in the world. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Should MMA media members fight amateur a few times? Would that help them in their job? What do you think?
No, mean, I mean, I can't say what Cub was thinking when he said that, but I don't. Would it be? Yeah. Would it help them be better journalists? Probably, but I don't think you can't be a good journalist if you haven't fought. It's like it's a horrible analogy, but like I've been there 3 times when my wife delivered our kids. I've never had a baby, but like I know it sucks. You know, it's I know what she went through. Like I can't feel it myself, but I feel like being in that room with her, like I could kind of talk about what giving birth like, and then ask another girl about like, hey, you know, when you're feeling this, like how was it? What's the process like? And it's kind of like, you know, it's like I said, horrible analogy of, you know, giving birth to fighting, but it's like I've never given birth, but I've been there a bunch of times, and I could probably talk about those experiences I had with other girls and maybe have it like make sense and be applicable and do an interview about it or something. But I don't think you have to necessarily do something to be good at covering it, you know. And I would say some of the best coaches, you know, weren't great fighters or never fought, you know. So why can't the best journalists, you know, be the same?
Exactly. Well, when you look at it, like coaches wise, right? There's some coaches out there, and I'm talking about like other sports too, where there's some of the best ever, and I don't even think they ever played
Yeah, and
professionally at
I think
all.
it's a weird thing in fighting. Was like I had 15 fights, but I think there's this weird thing in fighting that this dynamic that goes like coaches. It's like this weird thing. Like I think the bad coaches think they always have to be able to beat the fighters, and those coaches don't do that well. But then you got like the coaches who like it's like they never fought, but they're a good coach. But then they kind of don't stay in their lane where they're kind of like, you know, listen, you never cut weight. You don't know, like, you know, there's certain things you just got to stay away from because we know you didn't do it. You know, it's like, all right, cool, you're a good pad holder. You have knowledge on the sport, but don't try to be like, I know you're working hard. I know how you feel. You just got to suck it up. It's like, no, like, just hold the pads. You know, it's like, I think when it comes to the mental part of the fighting, I think you haven't fought, you got to kind of tone it down there. But then I think if you have fought, you can lean in on that's because to me that's no different than like the wrestling coach trying to teach you how to strike. You know, if he's never done striking, that's no different than the coach who's never cut weight trying to tell you how to tough it through weight cut. I think you just got to understand that your strengths and what your weaknesses are, and then coach to those.
All right, well, get your questions in. We've got about 5 minutes left until Tyson has to bounce. Here's the next one from Arthur. Coach, not sure if you answered this yet. Oh no, we already did that one. Let me get to this one. Oh, here it is. Matteo Brunello. Just a random question. Thoughts on Fedor Emelianenko?
Yeah, I mean he's probably one of the goats. He's on the Mount Rushmore of heavyweights. You know, he's got the ultimate dad bod, which I respect. I think he's a good example though of like looks don't matter. You know, like you saw that fight this weekend with the OU football player and the little kid, and you know, it's not you can't base everything on looks. It's yeah, no, yeah, man, he's a pioneer. You know, he's on the Mount Rushmore of heavyweights, and is he retired now?
No, he still has, I think, 1 or 2 fights left.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
All right, I see what you're saying. All right, let's go to the next one. In MMA, what is the best way to take care of your hands?
Man, it's like you gotta wrap them up good. You know, we have some good coaches around us that can wrap hands really well. That'll make like reusable hand wraps. It's about, you know, making sure you're wrapping your hands good and then wearing good quality gloves with good wrist protection, stuff like that. You know, And then also it's like, you know, when you're starting to feel dinged up, you got to take care of it. You don't just fight through a hand injury. It's, you know, I was, you know, you're not going to tough out a hand injury 8 weeks through camp. And I made the mistake. My last 2 fights, I broke my hand right here. I broke the extender finger hand bone, and so I couldn't throw any right hands the whole last 2 camps, and wasn't smart, you know. But that goes back to, I learned a lot of lessons in my career that I carry over to coaching of what not to do, and it's yeah, you got to take care of your hands. But and even now, like I said before, it goes to your strengths. Like, I would defer to the boxing coach or the Muay Thai coach or even the our PT um, on what to do. But like, I know from a high level, it's like you got to wrap your hands properly and you got to wear good quality gloves.
All right. Next question from Ong. How to increase punching power without any bags and pads? Like if you have punching power, right? If you have knockout power, something that you're born with, but have you seen guys increase their knockout power? Like, let's say they didn't have knockout power early in their career, but then they developed it later on.
Yeah, like, this is me getting out of my lane a little bit. I'm bro science. It's like, from my experiences, guys come in and they, from day one, I've held a lot of mitts for people, and by no means am I like a Thai coach or a boxing coach. But I've held a lot of mitts, and some people just come in with, they hit hard, you know, and then some people, big bad looking, they don't hit hard. And I think there's God given talent, and there's not much you could do about increasing or decreasing that. But I think if you can teach someone um, better technique, how to turn over your punches, the placement of your punches, getting your feet involved in the technique, I think you can add power. And then it comes to like timing and setups and stuff like that. And then like being accurate with your shots can make a big difference. Because I would say, like, you look at Rob and Calvin, and I don't know, I might get shit for this, but like, I think Rob probably hits naturally harder, but Calvin's got really good shot placement. So when Calvin knocks you out, it's like, because he hit you right on the chin and your jaw goes way over to the side. And when Rob kind of hit it, it's like a thud. It's more like, you know, you look at Dustin Poirier, he's like a thudder when he hits you, you know? Um, yeah, I think it's tough. I think some people have just naturally have power. I think, you know, you could increase the technique to get a little bit more power, but some people just bang and some people don't.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that. Yeah, there is guys that have a certain power, like a thud power, like you said, and then certain guys have that like one shot clean knockout, their sleeping power, and yeah, you see that a lot with the certain guys, right? Like, I never really dissected it like that. That's interesting. Hopefully, maybe I'll be able to have some knockout power before I die. Now, what's next? Well, let's see what we got here. Of course, Tristan says thanks to Tyson before he has to go. Of course, man, Tyson is one of the best guys to talk to, you know, in this industry. Here we go. What do you think of extreme weight cuts? Now, it seems like nowadays fighters have more access to information and nutritionists and dietitians to where extreme weight cuts are not as prevalent, or am I wrong?
I think it's the same. I think they have more information, but I think there's a study going on, but I think if you look at the average time of bout agreements when you get the bout agreement to when you fight, that seems to be getting shorter on average. And I think that's where the issue comes in. It's like, these guys are all performing at such a high level that you do need time off. And part of that is, you need to, you know, no one's going to die at 365, you know, like, you're going to have a fight, you're going to celebrate, your weight's going to go up, and then you're going to have to get it back down. And, you know, these guys need downtime, they need vacations, they need time off to unwind, because otherwise they'll just crash mentally. So, what's up, Melissa? But yeah, otherwise they just crash mentally. So I think the extreme weight cutting generally comes from when you take the fight on short notice and you feel like you can't afford to say no. Like, oh shit, if I say no to this fight, I'm not going to fight for 6 months. I got to feed my family. So it's kind of tough. It's like, yeah, on one hand, keep your weight lower, be ready for short notice. On the other hand, is like, I get why they get heavy, and I get why they still say yes and at least try it. So ideally, weight cut wouldn't be a thing. But yeah, it's kind of a necessary evil at this point. And there's, you know, hopefully it changes someday, but I don't see it changing anytime soon.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't see it changing anytime soon. Everything's a competition, man. Fighting, everything's a competition. Whatever you do, so even weight cutting is a competition. It's almost like some guys are like, how low can I go? You know what I mean? Like how
Yeah,
low could I go and be able to perform and compete? Um, it's about 7. Is it 7 right now?
I think so.
All right. Well,
Let's
just
do
let me
one more
know.
question. Yeah, let's do
All
one
right.
more question, and then I gotta pop off.
All right.
Sorry, I
Let's
didn't
see
mean to
what we
end it
got
early.
here. It's all good, man. Oh wait, I think it's a training question here from James Kendrick. How hard is it to coordinate with other coaches on a fighter's team, like with the strength and coach, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, striking?
It's easy. Like the way we have our our strength coaches live in Mass. Our strength coach lives near Boston. Our wrestling coach lives in Maine. I live in New Hampshire. The fighter lives in Mass. Like we're all over the place, but we have different ways that we work it. Because we're not under one roof. So it's I put together a scouting report and a game plan. I give all the coaches assignments on it, and then I'll have talks with the strength coach about what type of game plan we're applying. And so if there's anything specific I think we might want to add, and then being at the sessions and like my neck doesn't allow me to wrestle with Rob right now, but he's wrestling 3 days a week, 7 a.m. with the wrestling coach, and I'm there for 2 of them, the ones that he comes down to Mass for. So I'm there at 7 a.m. 2 days a week, overseeing the wrestling and then collaborating with the wrestling coach. And then once Rob gets into camp, I'll be going to some of the Muay Thai sessions, some of the boxing sessions, and then ideally some of the strength and conditioning sessions. So I'm there and I'm seeing it and I'm collaborating. I'm seeing what then I'm giving the strength coach feedback on how we're looking at sparring, and then we're tweaking the schedule based on, hey, he's been looking really, really like tired on Saturdays. Let's dial back on Fridays. And it's just about communicating with the different coaches, whether it be Facebook, FaceTime, text messaging, group texting, or whatever.
All right. I have one last question. It's a quick one. Okay. Perfect opponent for Calvin to come back to.
I think Zombie is the opponent that would make sense for everybody. That makes sense, but I'm not sure if our timeline falls, because I saw an interview where he wanted to fight twice. So maybe if he fights this spring and then he comes back in the fall, then maybe it makes sense for us to fight him. But if he's available when we come back in the fall, then yeah, I think that fight makes sense. 5 versus 6, and both coming off losses. Yeah, it's a fun fight too.
I'll push for that. And Rob Font, perfect opponent for him to come back to.
TJ or Cody,
All right,
former
let's
champs, big names. Maybe help get his Instagram following up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, Tyson, man, for the time, man. I really enjoy catching up with you, man. We're gonna have to do this, in the next 3 or 4 months again, and just catch up and get more questions in. It's always
Yeah,
good
man.
to get your
I won't
insight.
cut you short next time, but you got to get my boy Sean Madden on your next.
Oh, we already got him a couple weeks
Okay.
ago.
Well, come on. We got to get him on. Okay. Well, me and Sean come on.
We just got to get Eric. We got to get Eric next.
Eric's too
Yeah, I
cool,
haven't got
man.
him yet.
He's too cool. But all
All
right.
right, man.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
All right. Bye. All right, there you go, guys. Usually we go about hour and a half. Tyson has to go. He got to take care of some business. He's in quarantine in Las Vegas for fight week. He's going to be in the corner of William Knight. William Knight is facing off against Alonzo Menefield. That's a crazy matchup right there. A lot of people are not talking about that. That's 2 heavy hitters. Someone's going to get knocked out. It's going to be fun. If you guys got any questions for me, I'm going to stick around for the next, let's say, whatever. If you keep coming with the questions, I'm going to answer the questions. Just give me what you got. If not, I'll just end this thing a little bit early tonight. Here we go. Let me see what you guys got. What is it? Let's see. Okay, this question is probably not for me, but I'll probably answer it. What is the most common training injury you've seen? I think from my experience of being around fighters and coaches and just being around gyms and watching people train, some of the most common injuries that I've seen is like sprains, like finger sprains, wrist sprains, ankle sprains, like, yeah, it's just sprains everywhere. You know what I mean? Like I think that's the most common injury. Of course, the knee is something that is utilized a lot, and people hurt their knee a lot too. A neck probably, but like just very common wise, I think sprains are the most common. All right. What else? What else we got here? What else we got? Anything else you guys got? Any questions? Any comments? Anything for me pertaining to the UFC, Bellator, PFL? Anything that's going on in the world of mixed martial arts? Just let me know. If not, I'm just gonna bounce out, and I'll see you guys next week. just what is it? My next guest next week will be Patrick. He's the one that does the business podcast, the combat sports business podcast. I don't know the name exactly, so sorry to Patrick. But he's a very interesting guy, a very knowledgeable guy on the industry, like money and just everything, stuff that we don't ever talk about or rarely talk about on the show or any of the podcasts. He's going to come on as the guest, and you could ask anything you want about the industry. And he does a lot of work, dissecting financials and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens. We got a couple questions here. First one is, you think Whaley versus Rose will be in Val? I think so. I think that they're trying to stack that card with a double title, maybe even triple title, but I think double title for sure. Valentina versus Andraj is a crazy fight. I love that fight. I think that is going to be one of the best fights in this year, to be honest with you. And even Whaley versus Rose, if that even happens. But I think that will happen. If this fight card is in Las Vegas, I feel like that is what's going to happen, right? That's what's going to transpire. I feel like when they were trying to do it in Singapore or in Asia, I think that was one of the hiccups of people. They didn't want to fly over to Asia, most likely, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe money has to do with it. Who knows? But yeah, I think Whaley versus Rose will be on that. I think we'll hear an announcement in the next week. Yeah, I think in the next week, because that's what they usually do. Or somebody will break some news. Some of these guys that investigate. Let's see, Tristan. Thank you, Tristan, for always being on here and asking questions and keeping active. I really appreciate you. Every time I see your name and see the green circle with the T, I know it's you. Let's see. Were you just as shocked when Blades was KO'd as me? Not really, because Derek Lewis is known to KO everybody, right? Like, that's his style. His style is KO. He has it written tattooed on his chest, right? His like knockout king. So it wasn't as shocking. What was shocking to me is that Blades wasn't able to get Lewis down to the ground. That was shocking to me. And I think that showed a lot about the development of Lewis, him transitioning, evolving into a more complete mixed martial artist. And I think that he is a very big danger to anybody in that division, even Francis Ngannou, Stipe. I would like to see like what that fight would look like. Derek Lewis versus Stipe Miocic, especially with the new version of Derek Lewis. He's slimmer. He's probably stronger. He's probably faster. And he's probably taking the sport a little bit more seriously now compared to, like, let's say in the beginning of his UFC career. And the sky's the limit, man. He might end up being a champion in the next year or so, with Cormier being out. So we'll see what happens with Derek Lewis. Curtis Blades, I've said it before, I think Curtis Blades might be on his way out of the UFC on his terms, and we might see him in Bellator, or I wish that he was able to get in that PFL tournament, because winning that $1 million is huge. But we'll see what happens with him. James Kendrick, can we talk about the Uyghur deal in China? If you could read all about it on SCMP MMA, the website. You just go to the website, you can read all about it. I know that it's supposed to be this big deal, and they're talking about doing shows in China, more shows in China yearly, which is always good for me, because then I could go out to China and cover the shows, which is always awesome. But it helps with Asian MMA in general, to be honest with you, this deal with China, because it pushes a lot of attention from time to time from away from like North America to Asia when they have fight cards out here, and it's always great. The numbers, they're pretty crazy, like the amount of viewers that they get for the cards. And would that make Chinese fighters more of a pay-per-view draw? Most likely, you know what I mean? Like, Wei Li most likely is going to be much more valuable for the UFC now, when they got this deal going on with China. So hopefully, Wei Li busts through the barriers, cracks open the windows, whatever you want to call it, and becomes a massive star in the world. That's what I want to see. All right, let's see. What do you think about the new PFL fighter Cho Sung Bin? Now, Cho Sung Bin, I known him for a while. Everybody knows him internationally from probably his fight with Tamer, where he just laid a goose egg, lost for the first time in his career. It was his UFC debut. He flew all the way to Sweden and just didn't perform really well. He didn't perform the same way as I know him. That I've witnessed myself. I've seen him fight multiple times, live, and that was not the way he usually fights. It almost like the moment got to him, and hopefully that he learned from that experience. He hasn't fought since then, which has been a long time. And he's going to enter that PFL tournament. So I'm going to have my eye on him. Of course, I have my eye on this PFL tournament this year, a little bit more than, it was last year. So hopefully they entertain. I like Josembe, but his debut was, very disappointing. Jaja Kita, very disappointing. Like, I think a lot of it had to do with his father in the corner. Well, from what I heard is his father and his coach were in the corner, right? And his father's yelling out one instruction and his coach is yelling out another instruction, and the fighters in there trying to fight, right? So what are you listening to? That had a big part of it too. Like, I heard that confused him, and now his father probably won't be in the corner ever again. Jo Jung Bin, he's at Team Stun Gun now, a new team he's been training with for like the last year or so, and hopefully he comes back brand new, and we'll see a different version of him. Let's see what we got here. Okay, here we go. Who is the most talented Korean fighter not in the UFC right now? I'll give you a list. There's Hamsoi is probably number one on the list. Most talented Korean fighter not in the UFC right now. There's a bunch of fighters in road right now that have been sitting on contracts and they haven't been competing. And hopefully they start competing, or either that road let them go and go sign with the UFC. You got Kim Soo-chul. He's supposed to come back this year. He's probably the most talented fighter that should have been in the UFC, or he fought in one championship, he won the belt. He fought Bibiano, lost the belt, went to road and just dominated road for a couple of years, and then he retired. Now he's coming back. I think he could make it to the UFC and compete and become a top 10 fighter. You got Kim Min-woo, you got Lee Jong-young, who is the featherweight champ in Road FC. Kim Min-woo was a bantamweight champ in not UFC, sorry, Road FC. Lee Jong-young is the featherweight champ, Road FC, and both these guys are very young. All the guys are young. They're all in their like mid-20s, have at least like 10 fights, 15 fights or so. So very, got the experience against tough competition, international competition. I just hope that they get the opportunity to go to like a bigger organization and fight the best in the world, instead of just fighting each other in Korea. And but most likely that's what's going to happen. They're stuck in contracts. Who else do we got in Korea? There's a guy, middleweight, Hwang In-soo. He's also on the roster for Road FC. Guy with knockout power. Guy bangs like he's entertaining, man, and he's only lost once by knockout. And I think he's gonna come back even stronger. I think that was his last fight where he got knocked out. Who else is there in Korea? There's the UAE Warriors featherweight champ right now. Lee Do-gyum, he is the UAE Warriors featherweight champ. He's pretty exciting. He's probably edging closer and closer to getting signed by the UFC. Red Horse is pretty good. He's a lightweight. He just signed a deal with Brave, a multi-fight deal with Brave. So Brave is signing Korean fighters. There's another Korean fighter that signed with Brave like last year, I believe, and he's undefeated for the promotion. I think his name is Lee Kyung. I forgot his name, but if you go into the Brave, he's the co-main event in the next Brave event. So go check him out. He's really good on the ground and he's tough as nails. I've seen him fight many times. Let's see what else we got here. What is it, Chris? Are we going to see Super Stack card in Road FC in May? Is Road still the premier organization? In talent wise, Road is still the premier organization. They have the most talent. They have the best fighters in Korea signed to them. Are we going to see a Super Stack card in May? Maybe, I don't know for sure. I've only heard about the Kim Minu and Kim Suchur matchup, which most likely will be the main event. And then I'm hearing that it could be May or it could be June, so it's either one. But they need to come back. They haven't had a show in a long time. They missed basically the whole 2020, and waiting it out is not going to happen. I've heard that this pandemic's gonna last for a couple more years until like everything gets settled and figured out. So you might as well just start putting on shows if you can. What happened if Whaley Rose doesn't get announced in the next 2 weeks? I don't know what happens, man. Like, maybe they're not gonna fight. I don't know. Like, Whaley needs to. I don't know where Whaley is at right now. Maybe she's in China right now training. So if they do get this fight booked, she would. You would think that she would fly out to Vegas a little early, like way early, like a couple weeks early, just to be there and get used to it. But yeah, if it doesn't happen, then I guess they'll book it for a later date, or maybe they'll have Whaley Esparza, and we'll see that fight in April, but not for sure. April is coming up and still no fight announcement for exactly, James. James, you are right. But the UFC right now, they're just announcing fights just randomly, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So we don't know. They could be training right now, because I know Rose is training to fight Whaley. She's been training, and Whaley's probably been training to fight Rose or Esparza. It doesn't matter for her. So whenever they do get the announcement, it doesn't really factor into them because they've already been training in training camp, because we don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. A fight could have been like verbally agreed upon. The contracts just haven't been signed, and it's been in the works for like the last couple of weeks, and they've been training since the beginning of the year to fight each other. So we'll see what happens. So the contract situation in Korea is holding a lot of fighters back. Exactly, right? They have exclusive deals. Like most of the fighters that fight for Road, they have exclusive deals for Road. So if they want to go fight outside of Road, they have to get permission from the organization. And think about it, they're not gonna probably let these guys, especially their champions, to go out there and fight outside the organization because it's their chance of losing. That guy was cool at UAE with the flying knee. Exactly, that's Ido Gyum. He's had 2 spectacular wins. One was for the title in his debut against Rolando D, who was a UFC vet, who is actually a brave CF title contender right now. I think he's fighting for the number 1 contendership in his next fight. But yeah, his first fight, knockout. Second fight, flying knee knockout. His third fight, I've heard that they have it in the works. No, actually, no. I believe that something is holding that up, so he's not going to fight until a little bit later. So I can't release anything about that, but I know that they're kind of delaying his return due to some reasons. If Whaley Rose doesn't happen, UFC is going to give her a layup, aka Carla Esparza. I wouldn't necessarily call Carla Esparza a layup because she has that grinding style, the style that nobody really wants to face, because you don't really see Carla finishing fights, but you see her winning fights. And that's one thing about Carla that you have to respect is she knows how to go in there and win a fight no matter what kind of style the other fighter poses, what kind of challenges the other fighter poses, because she's just a grinder, man. She has that wrestling mentality. She can go in there and just win, and that's what she does. And I could see her going in there and doing that to anybody now because she's had all the experience. She's faced all the different styles. And she's built herself back up to the title contendership after winning the title, losing the title, and kind of floating around a little bit. And then now she's on a run. People don't talk about her because she doesn't have these like crazy finishes, but she wins fights. And when you win fights, any style is your style to face. It doesn't matter. So do I give Carla would I consider her like a favorite in the fight against even Rose? No, I feel like she's still the underdog, but she has the style to beat all the other girls. All right, Jaja coming with the heat. I love South Korean fighters because they put on bangers, but I truly believe most who are successful rely too much on their chin. I believe more need to train stateside work. I completely agree with you, Jaja, about training outside the country and getting looks from different coaches and having extended stays in big gyms, big locations, big, bigger names, better coaches, a combination of, like strength and conditioning with the diet, with, everything, just living that lifestyle. Because it's not like other countries' fighters are not doing it. You see Brazilians going to the US, you see Americans going to Brazil, you see guys from Europe going to the US, going to Brazil, back and forth. Darren Till spent like years and years in Brazil. I think he speaks Portuguese, and he's built his skill set in Brazilian gyms, and then went back to Calbon, and now we see who he is, as a top 10 fighter in the middleweight division. But yeah, South Korean fighters, I always push for that. I always say Korean fighters need to go out and explore. And some of the best spots are not even too far away. There's a hub of great training in Asia. Probably the best place to train if you are a fighter, which is down in Phuket in Thailand. If you go down there, if you ever been down there, it's great. It's great, man. I've been down there a bunch of times, and I've seen the craziest like practices, and just like 100, like pretty much like 60, 70, 80 pro fighters on one mat during a practice. Like you got Russians on one side, and you got the ladies on the other side, and you got the Japanese over here, and it's just the training is insane. And it's not just MMA, it's like everything you could get it down there. Muay Thai, boxing, everything. So for Asian fighters, Phuket is probably the hotbed, where you don't have to fly very far. From Korea, it takes like 5-6 hour flight. That's nothing. But if you want to go to the States, you have to sit on a plane for like 12-14 hours. It's a huge difference. And then you could go back and forth real fast from wherever you live to Thailand. All right, now let's see. What's the most controversial MMA take that you have, John? I don't even know what the most controversial MMA take that I have. I don't even think I'm really too controversial. Um, if I was controversial, I'm pretty sure somebody would like rip it from here and then put it on online if it was so crazy. But I have to think about that. I'd have to get back to you. I don't think of anything that's too controversial. Because if you see most successful Korean fighters have chin stun gun KZ, the weak chins never make it to the UFC. That's true. Well, I think that's true in a lot of cases, though. It's not just with Korean fighters. I think Stun Gun, he's a guy that pretty much was born and bred and cultivated in Korea, and he went as far as he could with what he had. And now he's a very successful celebrity in Korea. He's a comedian, and he has a Team Stun Gun, where he's building the next generation of fighters from his knowledge. And it's great to see that. Great to see him doing that and giving back to the next generation. KZ, the zombie, he's a little bit different. He's actually seeking coaches from outside of Korea. He's going over to Fight Ready with Eddie Cha and with what is it, Coach Eric. And there's a pretty insane roster of fighters over there. Pitbull brothers go there frequently. Henry Cejudo, stuff like people like that. Paulo Costa, I believe, also goes there, and a bunch of other UFC guys, Bellator guys. Let's see. John, you gonna be on the stream talking about the atomweight tournament a couple hours from now? Because if not, who do you think wins? Any dark horses? Okay, before I talk about that, I don't know if I'm gonna be on the broadcast later on. What time? I don't know. I'm gonna have to check. But if I'm not on there, I'm gonna tell you who I think's gonna win. Hamza gonna win the tournament. This is my belief, and the reason why I think that is because when you look at the stylistic matchups, there's nobody there that is like is just like jumps out the page like Hamza does. Like Hamza's been through the fire. You know what I mean? She fought in the strawweight division when she's the atom weight. But the crazy part, the only advantage I see for all these other girls is that Hamza is an actual atom weight, and in one championship, atom weight is actually strawweight. So when you look at that, a lot of these girls, she might run into the same kind of like problem that Demetrius Johnson had when he first came over, where a lot of the fighters that he was facing and she will be facing are much bigger and possibly much stronger than her. So hopefully, hopefully we'll see her overcome that and win that title. Dark horses, the dark horse to me would be Mengbo. I don't know if she's a dark horse, but yeah. Let's see what this is. Hamdallah has more fights than most of the fighters in the bracket. Definitely true. Early predictions for Sage, Northcutt, Shinya Aoki. What do you think about the matchup? Shinya Aoka is gonna Shinya Aoki, I believe will TKO Sage Northcutt. I feel like Aoki will be able to take him down, and not even conventionally. It's just like he'll be able to just get him to the ground, drag him there somehow, some way, and then get into mount, and then just drop down elbows after elbow after elbow after elbow, and just rip apart Sage's face. I can see that happening because Shinya's he loves that. Like he would love for people to like talk crazy to him because then he could just take it out on them inside the cage. So it's a bad matchup for Sage. I'm just wondering, like, who signed off on that? Like, who is his coach? Like, who is his manager? Like, it's a very confusing setup or a matchup for him to return after like so many months away due to injury. And in his debut, he was just devastated. So we'll see what happens. Was it Isuki, Ritu, and Denise all have so little fights? They do, but they're all good. You know what I mean? They all possess something that could lead him to winning that tournament. Do you believe the winners that UFC said for viewership in China? Is it? Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. That's what I'm talking about. The numbers of that deal. It's like I don't know if I believe it too much, but it's not. I don't think the UFC is coming up with these figures. I think it's more of the company over there that are giving the figures to the UFC. So I don't know who to blame, and I don't know if it's real or not. Aoki will strangle Northcutt. Yeah, that's probably a possible ending to that fight. Fighters are usually very candid and open about everything most times. What do you think that is? Why do you think that is? Well, fighters are, being a fighter and it's just you're just a whole like outside looking in, they're normal people, man. Like you talk to them, they're just normal. They're very nice, polite people, most of them. And but in here, in the mind, they're just different, man. Like it takes a different type of person to make that switch and to be able to go in there and then just basically almost go in there, almost kill somebody, or possibly, that's the mentality a lot of these guys like kill or be killed. It takes a different person, man, and that's why I think they're so candid, because a lot of these guys are a lot of these fighters are very confident in themselves, and that makes them candid and open about situations. But then there's a lot of fighters that when you hear them in interviews, you could kind of tell that they're taking us for a loop. They've taken us for a little ride in whatever they're trying to what type of narrative they're trying to put out there. And so you get two sides of the coin. I mean, you don't just get one side. But I love it when fighters are more open, and I love it when fighters kind of are themselves, but then they throw in a little spice to add, and that makes it better for me. When you're like a complete character like Colby Compton, that's great for your brand, that's great for you, and it's great for interviews too. You know what I mean? But you can't stay like that the whole time. So if you meet him, most likely he's not going to be that way. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's always great to have candid and open conversations with fighters and coaches. And I feel like coaches can be more candid because they're not the ones actually stepping in there. That's why I have this Q&A. All right, let's see. People forgot that Wei Lee early fights were grinding and dominant on the ground. They were. You're right. Why did the UFC say 7 million? Sounds like one championship when they say 1 billion. Well, 1 billion and 173 million is huge. There's a huge difference in those numbers right there. Anyone can step in the cage, gets some respect from me. It's not easy. Exactly. Anybody that what is this? Don't know. I just read that on the SCMP. Oh yeah. Well, they're just giving you what they've, in the article that they put out. They're just giving you what they've received as information. It's not like they're, I don't know. That's what I know, that there was a press release, and those figures most likely were on the press release. So uh, that's what they're going to report, right? Because usually the UFC is good at not. They're usually good at like kind of being more transparent, but then at the same time, what company is completely transparent? None of them are. Some companies, some organizations get attacked more than others, but all promotions are not transparent. Let's just be real about that. They have, their promotion, their promote. Does it have to be 100% true? No, it doesn't have to be 100% true. Would we like it to be 100% true? Yes, but it's not going to happen that way. What else we got? Do you think that they're still only martial artists and prize fighters? Um, well, I think that's more of like your mentality, as a fighter, like as an individual that, you know, goes into a cage and battles another individual until the referee stops it. There's guys that are like there's certain guys that are martial artists where their lifestyle is not their lifestyle revolves around martial arts. Like they live that lifestyle where they wake up and it's not as much about the money. It is still, you still want to get paid as much as you can, but it's not like their main concern. Whereas in a prize fighter, you're fighting for the prize. So you want to take care of your family. That's your main focus. You don't care about the martial arts aspect. You don't care about like, like touching gloves. You don't, you don't care about those little things. It's just you are out there to win and make your money and go home. You're not here to make friends. You're not here to do anything like that. You're just here to do your thing and leave. So yeah, I don't consider every fighter a prize fighter, because they're not. It's just the mentality. And I mean, I've asked many fighters this before. Usually I ask every like contender series, like if you watched my contender series interviews, at the end I ask almost all of the fighters, would you consider yourself more of a martial artist or a prize fighter? And then you get varying degrees. You get some guys saying that they're a combination, some guys saying complete martial artist, some will say I'm a prize fighter. It all depends. And then they always give a good explanation of why they believe that. Here we go. What we got? They are prize fighters, yes. And why? That's why I don't mind trash talk, since it's prize. Yeah, I never mind trash talk. You know what I mean? There's a certain limit that there's a certain boundary that you want to kind of like balance on, right? There's a little border that you want to balance on when you do the trash talking, but you just never want to go over that. And then when you go over it, then that's when it becomes, I don't know. Would you ever consider something too personal? It could be, right? Like, but some people think trash talking is just everything. Everything's open season for trash talking, and some guys don't take it that way. Yeah, you've seen it in, for example, in the whole, what is it? Conor McGregor, Habib. Leading up to that, Conor McGregor was going hard against Habib, and against like talking about everything. So, which I don't know. It's hard to say, like, is that crossing the line? I think it is for a lot of people, for especially from Habib's point of view and his upbringing and how he lives his life, right? So, but at the end of the day, you're gonna talk and you're gonna say whatever you're gonna say, but they're gonna go in there and fight and find out who's better. And there's nothing more pure than that. You know what I mean? All right, let's see what we got next. When you interviewed Ruben Pyle Jr., did you believe that the jet lag affected Jong? I don't know if it affected her, because well, he said, I think I see, like, I have terrible memory. I remember interviewing Ruben, but I don't remember exactly what he said about that. But I think he did say that it affected her, but she had been there for a little while. So who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen? But this time I think that that's not going to be any kind of factor. No one's going to talk about that, because she's going to have a, itinerary and properly set out her plan to get to America. and be ready. Do you think Felicia Spencer and Danielle Wolf is a mismatch? Yes, it's a mismatch, but it's the only fight for them to make in that featherweight division. There's not many other fights there that are true featherweights. And Danielle Wolf, she is 1-0 coming off the Contender Series win. And we talked about this, I think, a couple days ago on the podcast. I said that wouldn't it be wild if Danielle Wolf beat Felicia Spencer, like knocked her out, and then she's 2-0, and then she's fighting for the featherweight title next. And that could be a possibility in the UFC. It'll be a first, but a possibility. Arthur says Danielle Wolf is in such a thin division. She was bound to fight Felicia. Exactly. You know, like who else is there? I believe that a lot of the bantamweights should go up to featherweight and fight. Why not? Why not just add that? You know, keep the 10 pounds on and fight. It makes sense. Why was it so hard for Wei Lee's team to get visas? I don't know if it was it due to the visa? I think it was due to like the travel stuff, like the travel, like travel was being shut down in certain places of the world, so they had to travel from here. Like she had to get out of China real fast. I would go back and watch the what is it? Go back and watch the Rubin interview, and I think they talk about it more. I don't remember exactly. Do you think featherweights should go to Bellator since, in my opinion, their division is better than the UFC besides Nunez? I would, but I always look at it like this. The path to the title is shorter in the UFC, and then you got to think, is the title more important for you, or is the competition more important, or is the money more important? Those are like some factors that I would weigh in deciding as a featherweight, where would I want to go? Would I want to go there to the UFC, or would I want to go um, to Bellator? But if I was a fighter, I would go to the UFC because the path to the title is shorter, and then there's more eyes on the UFC. And Amanda Nunez is the champ. She's the champ, and if you beat her and take her title, right now it means more to a lot of people if you beat her compared to, let's say, you beat Chris Cyborg. What about Zaram Farn versus Danielle Wolf? I don't know. Maybe she's not ready to fight, right? Dos Santos. Yeah, she didn't perform very well last fight, right? Against against Wei Lee's fight with Daniel. Well, her only jiu-jitsu coach got a visa. Is it hard for people in China to get? Most likely, it's hard to get visas anywhere nowadays. Both divisions are on lock with Nunez and Cyborg ruling. Yeah, those are like right now. You're watching two of the best women's fighters ever. Like there's no questions asked. And that's why the rematch is something that people want to see so badly, but it's not going to happen because they don't do those cross promotions. What else we got? Any more questions you guys got for me? Or am I going to have to bounce? All right. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to bounce out. It's been more than an hour and a half. Thank you everybody for joining and asking questions. And next week, like I said, it's going to be more of like a business style podcast. Get into the business side of MMA and talk about that more with Patrick. He's the guy that does a lot of stuff over there at the Body Lock, and a great guy to talk to. So thank you everybody. Make sure you guys subscribe and like and everything. And I'll see you guys next week. Take care and.